Right. Just so
Letting
we
us go to. Just make sure you turn your mics on, it is 1 hour after you go live.
These are.
You're saying.
The strokes, it's all. That's preliminary review, preliminary review. John. Because they're gonna be add some stuff to the site plan. Right? Just ask them when we get there. Yeah.
Not having somebody doing.
Tim doesn't know what to do.
Anyway.
All right. Just say. Okay. I figured out also some just like.
Oh, that's just so. Figure it out. I can't even get there.
Next spring, you're on here. That's all right. Was.
Not a roll. It's just a roll. Okay.
I'm gonna call it. Because I don't know exactly how they do it.
And also.
I think we should do it on Zoom and I'm gonna post.
Yes.
Let me just post it first.
Did you? I couldn't create one on this.
I'm gonna start it on. I'm gonna start it on. Thing around the caterpillar and I was backing out. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Thank you for your patience for attempting some electronic uploads here. I believe we're live on our website, but we were having problems connecting to Zoom tonight. So, or Facebook, sorry. Right, Zoom on our website, but Facebook we cannot connect to. So, with that, I guess first, if we would all please stand and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands, the nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome. I'm Sue Smith, I'm chairman of the Town of Pompey Planning Board. And first we'll go through our board members. They've introduced themselves, starting on my far right.
John Shaheen, Gulf Road.
Kevin Corson, Windy Hill Lane.
Sarah LaJudas, board secretary.
Again, Sue Smith, Route 20, just down the road.
Carl Farren for Trillium Trail.
Deb Cook, Pompey Center Road.
Dan Bargabus, Limber Pine Circle.
And we are absent one member tonight who is not feeling well tonight. So that would be Roy Smith. First order of business, this is our first meeting of the new calendar year. And unless I hear differently, I'd like to make a motion that the third Monday of every month at 6:30 be set aside for the Town of Pompey Planning Board
I'll
meetings.
second.
Second by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Last month, December 19th, 2022, we have our meeting minutes. I'll have time to review your draft. I'm aware John had a couple clarifications to the minutes. Were there any other? Hearing none. Motion to approve minutes as corrected. Moved by Carl. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
You opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Before we go any further, our town engineer, John Dunkel, and town attorney, Jamie Sutphin. Sorry about that. Tim Burke is and with us in the back, and he is our town code enforcement officer. So, with that, first on our agenda this evening is the Hutton Strozak West subdivision. The preliminary review of an application for subdivision of land located at 2628 Pompey Hollow Road, tax map number 025-03-08-3. Is there a representative here this evening? Come on up, sir. And I guess first, then your name,
David Hutton.
you are David Hutton, okay, as applicant, so. Basically, explain to us what it is that you wish to do.
Well, we have a farm, 100 acres. We sold 50 acres in Madison County. This is all in Onondaga County. We're brother-in-laws, we're married sisters, and we bought the farmhouse in 1969. And then I split off with my wife on another part, 1.8 acres. On the other end.
The house is on the other side of the road,
This
that's where your barns are.
This is the barn. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, all this stuff. We already did a lot line adjustment a little while ago, okay? And now we want to, the issue is, my brother-in-law has the farmhouse right across the street from the barn. And we want to sell all the land that is tillable. Okay, and we want to keep his property and the barns as well as my property. But that's all been taken care of. The issue is we need to deed off, this is a subdivision, so he can have both the barn, the chicken coop, and his house as one piece that he could sell. We can't do it right now until we get this as a subdivision.
Okay, when you say one piece though,
Well, it won't be one
These are-
piece, it'll obviously be two. It's the farmhouse and
okay,
but he would own both of them.
so avoid confusion at this point.
Yeah, sure.
What we're talking about is,
I'm sorry, I get
Can I
confused.
just interject, can we pull that out so our engineer and our attorney can look at it at the same time while the explanation goes on? Because it's the only map that's available, right? We don't have another copy, do we?
Oh, I have a copy here.
Yes. If you could,
Tim, do we have more copies?
Yeah, we did here, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a lot line adjustment where his property, which is the original farmhouse,
Okay.
which is right
That's not-
here. I know, but
that's
the
not-
point is, it's on the other side of the road.
uh, Get her clipboard.
Where is it, back there? Put it on the easel, I guess. Yeah, just so
Never
those,
mind my dirtiness.
so those guys can look at it, or Sue, actually, if you walk over to the table with those two, that might even make it easier. So that, so they're in the same loop as you are.
Yeah. It's got it there.
See, you'll explain it to us, I know you will. We'll pass that one around. The dirty one, and you go look at the clean one now. Or no, bring that here so we can pass this back and forth.
Where's that one? Okay.
So this is.
To.
Reading West Side Acre last.
So
Don't say it's not like that, you know.
That's the big one, subdivided.
So I don't know. I don't get it.
Okay. I just said,
plus or minus acres. Which when you say like sell off the billable, yeah, that's gonna include
Well, the whole,
everything.
yeah.
The driveways.
Yeah.
The driveways.
Well.
The driveway, if you will, I guess. That you will follow.
But that should be. Initially, right off on the map. Any farm driveways should be shown. So like if there's a driveway here, it should be shown. Both labeling. Should be in terms of lot 1 and lot 2, that. Farm lot and the land or.
So that's what they're not gonna help.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the proposed.
So basically where the
So.
barns are,
Better label.
this is simply lot
Our lot
and subdividing off by
and your lot.
Oh, from the other.
from the rest of the farmland.
Show if you have like sense.
The kept.
Yeah, the rest of the houses are covered with it.
Except sell it as farmland.
Because we have to install this as part of this.
Acreage.
But why own it? So, yeah, we might get this so that we can add it, it is eventually. So,
Well,
that creates a barn on the last.
yeah, it's just like, we have to see if they have to allow.
supposedly. It's now technically buildable. I was like, not planning.
But there's a structure on it. There's what-
I guess that's already.
But yeah, it's already exists.
It's already existing.
And there's no how. There's no house there, right?
So it's a pre-existing.
Right, it's just. It was on 78 acres. Yeah.
So this is west side.
Yeah. Probably all the road.
Oh, the man's. We're on the other side. Up to Madison County, and it's sold out, the one that's in this county. So we all. With and.
Well, keeping this. And he's got 600 here and.
Those four have sons.
So this was.
Ronnie.
road frontage after this one.
Is there a farm driveway?
They could get in here. Because they have to get in here to,
Right, so then they can sell that. What driveway are they gonna use to get access?
they will. They can get. They can get anywhere.
And off of Corndale.
Yeah, but it's they can come over here, but then, yeah, the creek.
That's right.
Yeah, the creek. No, they always, what will actually happen, they will come to here. Do that. But they. That's, that would be.
You better not. Like
Hey, this part. Get there here.
Driveway starts going down.
Pick up here, but.
Right, driveways, setback, water.
Got a nice little spot.
Oh, yeah.
Lot one, lot two.
You know, what setback is how far?
Close, 1925.
Yeah, it's.
Minimum setback 50 feet. Side 20 to 20.
I wrote.
This one height 35.
Pretty close, I know that.
In the front of this all the way.
Because they're really, you know,
It's a primary,
A
right?
little bit of. They find all that over there.
I think so, because isn't that what we had to do with the B and V on?
Yeah.
The other side, 20 and. Hollow?
the grandfather.
Get rid of No, this says people own that. The first thing. That's what that one said about the solar.
Well, it's.
There's existing. That's what we decided.
It's same as here, you don't. It's not right this. It's.
Got a deep ditch there. Remember that.
Never said it.
Yes.
What's shown here is the large barn, it's actually.
Yeah.
The house.
Yeah, it's just it's not conforming now. It's been as it's fixed. So it's, yeah. You're not increasing the non-conformity. Yep.
Okay, makes sense.
The houses, they have two driveways going down.
No. That's
Like bring everybody around.
All right, so bringing it back around here. Legal's worried about setback of the barns on, and they say no, that's not an issue at this point, so.
Pre-existing non-conforming structure, so it's fine, and he's not increasing the non-conformity by the subdivision.
Not changing the use of the building or anything.
Right.
Right.
Okay, all right. So what I see on the map is that it needs to be labeled lot 1 and lot 2,
Lot 2.
and.
Which one's lot 1? This would be lot 1, right? And that would be 2 or?
Doesn't really matter.
Your preference.
You can flip a coin or whatever. I would like to see driveway included.
Access and.
Yeah. Is there any well or septic or anything on that side of the road?
There is a well.
I go there.
Is it the circle or is that the silo?
Circle. Oh, this is the silo,
Is that the silo?
right next to the silo.
Okay.
And the septic?
No, sir.
It'd have to have it as Caesar's Farm.
Right?
You don't need a septic, but they have enough acreage for it if they're, it's a conforming size of
Right,
acreage.
so if they're gonna build something in the future, then they would have to do all that.
Yeah.
Is the well used by the property across the road?
No, so just there when we get cows. That's all.
Okay.
There should note a well.
If you plot it on there, it's there, it's in the next thing. But the well in the driveway.
This is coming back in. Suggest them. We can get driveway on the remaining frontage for that.
That was my thought. Which basically that's, yes, county road, so we kind of got the.
Yeah, muzzle is what you need, the bait. I just know.
Even though you just drive down those.
roads. All we need is a letter from them saying that. There's appropriate site distance that it could be a driveway. fence. I mean,
Yes, you know, it's a pretty common thing to be asked. If anything.
No, to say this is accessible from the road.
And it's all about
Without
site.
having to put in
You don't have to put culverts in now, but they.
There's really.
It's about the site, distance, making sure there's a place on that front edge where
You
someone
can
can.
actually get it.
It's safe.
safely.
Oh, yeah.
Driveway.
I'm just trying to. Well, we'll have a couple, you know, I drive a steep on road, right?
Right, so next process. Next month, there'll be a public hearing on this. You will come back to us. There is a letter that has to be sent.
You sent me that a month ago.
Letter needs to be sent out. The next meeting, the next meeting date is February.
Cheat sheet out.
On your Monday. February 20th will be on.
That would be good. Thank you.
We bring us some more maps, send us some more maps. We
We had said something.
And there.
But I can- yeah, I'll do
Once they get, we need these ones. Yeah, updated.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. So Perry Real Estate Holdings Broadfield Road subdivisions. Preliminary review of an application for subdivision of land located on Broadfield Road.
I'm Pat Reynolds with I Using Rome Land Survey. Just like a applicant. So it looks like everybody's got a copy of the maps, but I do have extra. if anybody-
Tell us what your intent is.
So we have 18 and a half acres on Broadfield Road. We have an application to try to divide it into two parcels. One parcel will be 7.9 acres and the other one will be 10.6 acres. Currently, the way the two lots are, they will both have access on Broadfield Road due to the existing configuration of the lot. That road frontage is only going to be 60 feet for each of those lots. We do have variance application submitted to the town. We just weren't exactly sure how the process was going to work.
goes hand in hand, it starts here, and then for us to, the only way we can approve it is with the variance granted.
Yep. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
It's kind of back and then back again.
So subdivision is really not a major issue, it's the variance that's the major issue. Right, which we can't rule on a subdivision unless they get the variance for the.
Right, but I think we need to recommend and really look at what's happened to these parcels and why they are the way they are.
And I would certainly like to get input,
Yeah,
you know.
why are they the way they are?
I bought them that way.
Okay,
Yeah, so when I bought the property, there's an existing common driveway that serves two homes. That goes into the 18.5 acres right now. And that's the westernmost driveway.
Yeah.
So I was.
Okay, just 1 minute.
Sure.
I looked at this and said, oh, I remember this, but I don't remember it.
Spoke with you on the phone quite a while back.
Yeah, I knew that there was something. This is the map going back to 2010. When it was, what was subdivided off and what was left and what they're now trying to do. So. In 2010, basically,
right, I
This
remember
part.
that, yeah, got knocked
got
off.
knocked off and then left the 260-foot excess, but it didn't. I remember the discussion with the access on the one and the two other property owners having the access in and so on. But there's a couple other things I do want to question now on that also, but that's.
Is there an existing map filed of that subdivision from what we're saying is 2010?
So I did not come across a map. This is the first time seeing of that.
Yeah, there's two of them.
But it doesn't show any right of ways or anything on it either. This doesn't, I mean, it's not signed anyway. It's hard to say what it is. So, tell me your name again. Pat. So, is there a filed right of way agreement for this?
So in the actual, one of the older deeds for this triangle parcel, that's where the right of way came out of that. So it's just filed in the deed as far as a standalone.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah.
Great.
It's still only 60 feet, right?
Well, right, but it's, I think we have to get a better picture of what we've got here. It might be a good time to clean that up. And I want to see what that says in the old deed, and maybe this owner can file a declaration of easement with some meets and bounds or something. Is that what got here? This, so on this map, right there, we've got. Is that where you think this easement is, or?
So there is a fairly good description of it.
In this.
Yeah, and then there's also,
Well, if I could pull the book of pages, I would.
I can get you. There's also this driveway right away is also referenced.
Does that encumber that 60 foot in any way?
Yeah. Oh, it covers it. So, but
Clarification talks about the easement for the septic system. The in-ground pool and patio area also encroaches over.
I'm in current discussions with that landowner about possibly selling him that easement. If he would be interested in buying it, just to make it simple.
That was all I know.
My attorney's been talking with him about it, but he hasn't told us one way or the other what he intends to do. And so we've given him till the end of January to kind of let us know if he wants to try to work with us to maybe break that off in this process, if you guys agree. And allow him to purchase that, so that kind of avoids any conflict there, but I'm not sure what his intentions are. Obviously, it makes sense. His pool house, his yard, his septic,
One thing, but the building.
yeah, his buildings and his fence and everything's on that. And I don't know that I even realized it till you surveyed it when I purchased it. So the goal is to not have any issues with him and try to make it so it works.
To me, it would make sense.
Yeah.
To do it all one.
Who's your counsel?
Dave Grasso.
So that would all come out of the proposed lot one. Further reduce lot one.
Yes.
And I've no, well, my council's notified him that we were gonna bring this to the board and kind of let him know that we really would like to know what his thoughts are. But we've not heard back. I believe he hasn't been feeling well, so I haven't pressured him.
So I think if that's the direction, and that would be the best direction, I would assume we'd probably want to include their lot and do 1, 2, and 3.
A lot line adjustment.
Yeah,
For that part, yep,
This could all be done under one.
it can.
At least from that aspect.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. I mean, if I lived there, I'd hope somebody would give me the opportunity to. But not have to move this.
Yeah.
And we-
Again, you don't want to see So. Was Jamie asked to find the actual paperwork giving the easement for the driveways. John does have a picture of what those two easements.
We're familiar, that's the one, and the other one is. Existing driveway.
Existing driveway is the easement one.
Photographs of.
That ends right here, property, that's.
Sure, is that-
I do have also from the county.
Yeah.
Okay. You do have a copy, okay.
That's the letter. They have a.
So here's another question.
Yeah.
So there's a lot here, a lot here, and a lot here.
Where do they get it?
So this lot is giving access on the street to the west. It's just yeah. Yields.
Yes, I was looking.
I don't know if it's
Yeah, it's here.
it's not
So what if, these are different tax parcels here, where do they get it?
they have shared access on this lot.
There's a big shed. As soon as part of this.
They're not getting access to your. Not any. They're not gonna require it.
I think this is.
Yeah, so
all-
that's the tax map. So
Yeah, each one of these is separate parcels.
You see that?
Separate.
Yeah, it's the one you know, it's a pretty separate part of it. I don't.
It's here that they're not. needing access.
They're not in there.
They're not needing access.
This is lot two. Yeah, but I think it's.
So it's doing it. Just not required to.
Oh.
Me, it looks like a lot of adjustment. Oh, John's got a good question. Three,
this and this.
three, it's already serving two. Correct. So, and if you do all that, you're serving three, and I don't know what the answer to that is.
My question was,
42,
when does it drive?
43.
Right.
42, yeah. We will ask the surveyor, what the dotted line, this dotted line.
They probably should have reported to the end of this story.
This here is
The center line.
line three.
That's all.
Now,
What's this dotted line by the way?
I'm looking at that those are, at the time of this map, separate parcels. And throughout it's. That.
Yeah, so the.
Still added
Somebody else's. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't.
show some. items. I don't- Besides that. That was.
You don't have plans.
Yeah, but it's gotta be changed anyway.
Right, so it doesn't.
Well, I'm not sure.
The maps are Harry.
I really like this. If I could break this off and sell the top. I may consider keeping
So
this.
you.
I have 3 daughters that expressed interest. in the oldest in this line. So, you know, I really had to decide. Truth be told, I may end up selling both depending on.
Right.
Right. No, it's, I know, I don't anticipate further. There was.
Oh, I wanted to hear, I guess I'm not hearing all this, so.
Would probably just sell the whole piece as.
Hang on, I just conjecture, but when does it become a private road? How many people have, because it's gonna be serving 3
Three lots.
lots?
I don't know what your private road requirements are, so I have to look at that.
But his intent is 2 lot subdivision, no further subdivision, 1 house on each.
Right, but we're talking about the road, the access.
But that access road now has 2 houses, it'll then have three properties.
So right now, he couldn't get a building from the 1 lot. It doesn't have the front.
It definitely has to go to zoning.
Right.
Yes.
This is marriage.
But zoning needs our opinion. Correct?
It is probably something that should be weighed in by this board as to whether this is an appropriate, because this board is charged with an orderly development of land. So if you do let it be divided, you might have some kind of a recommendation and note that if there's cannot be any further subdivision unless a road is built.
This question knows, because we've been trying to try away from shared driveways.
Right.
And there's 2, and it basically comes back to current owners, yeah, they can get along and great, but if one sells and then you've got another owner that's not amicable and not agreeable, and then another one does all the work, and so on, and all of a sudden now you're going a 3-way driveway. How does that balance out? So it kind of comes back first that we want to see the legality of the easements that were granted, how they were worded.
If it becomes a road, then it sends it into a whole nother realm of how it has to be built and designed and drainage and such.
So there's
Okay.
some questions first on that.
All right, and if
Very expensive, making it an actual road.
Right.
Just to keep that in mind.
I can assure you, I'm not going down that road.
Yeah.
No.
pun intended.
Full disclosure, I've been informed our zoning board is unable to meet in February. That they will not have a quorum and the chairman will not be available either. So the next time that they meet is in March.
yeah.
I'm in no rush.
Just be clear on that. So we do have time to get some of these questions answered. They typically do it on the second Monday. Again, it's on a recommendation, they meet. Any other questions? On the board?
And just to clarify, so these other lots don't need access here. Or no, they have access somewhere else.
These lots.
Yeah, there's people living there and there's a shed in the back that there's a trail from one of the neighbors that are. I don't see any other reason they would need to have access, and there's certainly no access for lot number 2. I've walked the property and you can barely crawl through it.
Yeah.
This is just a bill. Landowner.
Yeah, to buy that, right.
To me, that's. So easements. Personally, I'd like to see that. Please.
Oh, sure.
Also, the board is to. Here's your chance that you can do that, but let's clean dry. For the answer. Zoning is good to work with. Answer yes, no.
But at least I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we thank you. We got any questions?
I will.
Will do. Thank you.
Then we can talk about a public hearing. And, you know, when we look at this, we need to talk about some findings. We do have our code saying that, you know, these plat blocks are not preferred. I think they have to have a good reason for why it would be recommended and recommendation on why this should have a small road frontage. But it already does for one big, but now it's being subdivided. And I think there probably should be a finding that it can't be further subdivided.
Because it was subdivided at one point. Create this.
Yes, in a weird way, but
Yeah, so,
like lopped off all the frontage and then left the back.
right, and I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
Apparently.
And it doesn't look like there's an easy way. to Fix that.
But if I were him, I'd be happy just to get the zoning variance for one house. Subdividing, it's only compounding a mistake. Instead of one mistake, now we're gonna.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's got a buildable lot because it was allowed to be there with that 60 foot. That's what I'm thinking way back a decade ago. The one that's just 60 foot.
Theoretically, it would have been 120.
So can you add them up? You have 120, 260.
Well, that's fine.
I know, I know, I that one. But good one, John.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll be back. Next month. Even more.
Interesting.
And we'll get to the zoning board after they're back in front of us.
I mean, we have. Most of the part of us in that's got
Mhm.
conforming lots. Starts out as a conforming lot. Now.
That's why you have to be careful about these, you know, it's a lot of property, even on the last one. There's a ton of like 70 acres left and only so much road frontage. So in order to really properly develop it, yeah, right, you gotta build roads. Or build infrastructure or get one house. That's it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I bet a piece of property that goes out to Gibbs Road. That one that we thought was landlocked, that would give them the frontage he'd need.
No,
No,
they have access and you say it was road frontage.
they have access to Gibbs Road. They don't own that much property on Gibbs. Looks pretty wide. Could be, I don't know. Just,
Another day.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right back.
Next up, next on site plan review of the site plan submitted for a project located at 3191 Pompey Center Road, tax map number 016 dot dash 02 dash 02.0. Once again, I am recusing myself from this because of neighbors' involvements and business and so on. So turn it over to Mr. Kevin Corson.
Well, you folks want to come up? And I think we asked you for some additional information that we haven't received yet.
Right. And so far, we have not gotten all that information.
Okay.
We're waiting on the county for the driveway approval.
Okay.
It's been staked out. They supposedly measured, but I haven't heard back from them. And
The other
then,
things, what were the other things?
So some updated lighting on the site plan
Right.
is not yet available. The holidays kind of got away from us. But with that said, also we will be meeting with Tim coming up here, hopefully, when his schedule allows it to go over the fire inspection. Yeah.
You got information, we got information back from the county. You've seen that.
oh, you did.
Yes.
So I had not seen it. Oh, this isn't about the driveway. It's,
On the second page, I think it does mention driveway. doesn't it?
One thing with the county, they want a gravel parking lot, but I agree you should leave it for hay. Because you're farming it still.
Right, and we're still up in the air on that because we want to leave it as a hay parking lot, but we also know if we're gonna host larger events there, it could
Around
bite
haying
us,
time,
could
yeah.
bite us. And so we're,
Okay,
you know, we may have to build the parking lot.
but the good thing is you have a nice gravel driveway
It's
and going to the road.
well drained gravel driveway, yeah.
Okay, good.
And these are recommendations. They're not mandating us. They're making recommendations.
Okay, so it's something we can take or,
Yeah, you can have that copy.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay,
I have
thanks.
a copy of that. So it does describe those, pretty much the same things we talked about.
okay,
Access and waiting for the DOT to approve site distances.
yeah, so it doesn't say anything about that in here yet.
No, it said, I don't think it did, but that's something we're waiting on anyway from you
Okay.
folks. And were there some updates on the maps?
The site planner is moving really slow. Okay, and so, no, we have not gotten that done yet.
Okay, and you know what it is we needed on the maps?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
So driveways, materials, lighting,
septic, I think.
bathroom locations, which I think are already on the map.
Yeah.
The septic for the house is on the map?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if not, we'll
Yeah.
make sure of that.
Obviously, that's a working septic system in the house.
It's, yeah, the septic is located to the south of the house.
So, plenty far away. from
Wells to the north of the
property,
house.
Absolutely.
Done a wonderful job up there. It looks fantastic.
It does.
I've
So,
known that farm since early Kellish farm days and it's never looked so nice. When Ben Kellish was farming there. So it looks nice.
so Jamie.
Yep.
We need to wait for this additional information until next month.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And then, we should, hopefully we'll have it and, plan on a public hearing.
Public hearing at that point.
I think that's a good idea. So as soon as you can get it in, we'll make sure the public hearing gets published. Otherwise it gets pushed out because there has to be enough time for the
Sure,
public hearing and then it'll be spring.
Yeah.
yeah,
And the good news is we have the county's information back, so we don't have to wait for them.
Right.
Yeah. That's, so I think as soon as you get that, get it to us.
okay,
Get it to Stu and to codes and we'll get you on the calendar for next month.
great.
And you probably have the list of neighbors
There's only one neighbor that's within
that's within the
a
distance
1,000 feet or
across the street.
something, yeah.
Yeah,
And they're in Tennessee this time of year, but they're
Yeah.
monitoring the situation because they called me after the.
what about the
Last-
house down below
That's probably a half mile
from
from,
your property?
yeah.
Oh,
Well, maybe from the property line, it's not quite that far,
Yeah.
but from the house it is.
just check that out.
Okay.
Because I think that would be the only.
Yeah, that's a rental too, so I don't
Yeah.
even know who
Do they measure from the property lines though, or do they measure
from the actual site.
those lines?
Yeah.
Show.
I'd have to ask my attorney.
So that's,
You measure from the property lines. that are radius.
Okay. So this is within how much?
Whole line.
So typically.
Yep.
I'll send this to you guys. To be sent to them,
I
but
thought to mention that only one came back. It's not. I think we
So we did send the letters
I
out?
believe we did send them out. Yeah, by certified mail.
Okay.
The one guy's the rental property.
That
He
didn't
doesn't
come back?
live there. I don't know if that was the one or not, but he lives in Florida, I know.
was that was the letter for a public hearing?
I think that was his understanding, but I'm not sure. on the-
We haven't.
That was, I believe your text would it have been like your attorney? That,
Site planner sent him out, right?
okay,
No.
on their own, without us, like initiating that process for last month.
Okay. So.
So it'll have to be done for the official public hearing, but again, we meet in a month, but the deadline is. The deadline.
To be sent out, I think it's 10 days prior to the meeting.
So
Town.
Right, so by the tenth. Go back.
that's back up for my next meeting. And least 11 or 12 days. So we have everything in.
Okay. All right, so that gives us a couple weeks.
Right.
Yep, and as soon as you get it, so we can look at it before the
Sure.
meeting and say we need something else. Get
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
So, just a couple of things I had, what, besides the weddings, what other kinds of venues are you anticipating you're gonna be having there?
You know, maybe family reunions or, you know, anything where somebody would want a large space to rent. So
Celebration.
birthday, you know. Anything,
They would-
gatherings.
Yeah. I don't know that we have an all encompassing list on celebration, so it would be like.
Sort of family.
Family
oriented,
oriented,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you put together, you know, I think at the last meeting, we asked for something in writing.
We've got a
Right.
little,
Like I said here, wedding, anniversary, other celebration,
All right.
but I mean, I can put in there, family oriented.
Yeah, that's a nice spin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think that would be good. Just present that to us next.
For
And
sure.
is the, are you anticipating just weekends or during the
Yes,
week?
weekends. I mean,
More
I
than
think most
likely,
people
yeah.
are like,
That's when people
you
are
know,
doing
Friday,
those
Saturday,
celebrations. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
Sunday,
All right.
yeah.
So, and so there was a lot of discussion in the last meeting about the house, and the intent to rent it, as part of these venues, but then there was some discussion about using it as an Airbnb too, and,
in the off season, you know, we'd like to be able to rent it as an Airbnb.
I mean, maybe you can weigh in on this. I don't see anything in our zoning code that addresses it. Yes.
Not have anything that regulates what is usually referred to as short-term rental.
Right. And there's a number of them on the road.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
So I don't think that's anything we can really.
It's nothing for us, right?
No, it's not for us.
Now, probably is, and anything goes Airbnb. Town.
It's not a permitted use on farm.
So,
No,
I don't want to get involved. in this.
industrial,
This is-
commercial.
it's not residential, right?
That's part of the reason we're doing this
Oh.
business overlay plan so we can operate something there on farm
Right.
property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so all I'm driving at is that somehow needs to be addressed in all this.
Well, okay.
If it's gonna be-
It's farm, I was thinking it was residential, but it's farm, so there's only certain permitted uses. Farm, but I think single.
Can you help me understand, the house is
Permitted.
residential, but
Land, the way the
the
land
land
is
is the
done.
way it's zoned.
I mean, I think it could be addressed somehow in this overlay.
But that was what we were told in the beginning. The purpose of the overlay is because we are a farm. We need to create a business overlay plan that identifies this site as like an operating business within the farm. So that isn't like a farm,
Second air.
you know, business.
Right. Yeah, because I think it fits in to,
Well, I'll work on that, on an opinion on that to share with all of you.
All right.
It's an interesting area because there's agritourism, there's a home, the home is permitted.
Right.
You know, it's accessory to the use.
Yep.
So, you know, we'll talk to the supervisor and the town board and come up with an opinion.
Maybe talk to Tim, because we have a group that's working on regulating short-term rentals, so.
But it's not here yet.
Right, it's, yeah.
It's not here yet, no, but it's not permitted either. That's why I'm saying. talk to-
Well, right, no, we'll talk about
Yeah.
it. This is different because it's a whole agritourism.
I know.
So it's got its own little.
Right.
We'll get it.
Sidebar.
right,
Yes.
exactly. I mean, an Airbnb could be considered part of agritourism. in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yes,
So,
and single families are permitted in farms. So again, I'm not gonna give you a legal opinion right now, but
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that's gonna come into it.
yeah, I'm just getting at it needs to be addressed somehow.
Yep, understood, agreed,
Not just here.
agreed. Well, yeah, this can be its own thing.
Thing, sure.
Something different, but the whole thing about Airbnbs is being brought
Yep.
Yeah.
to.
Okay, so. Anybody have anything else for them? All right, we'll see you next month. Okay.
Thank you.
Information. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Coach, who you're on?
Next, Seaboard Solar Operations Tier 3 solar application. This is a concept site plan review for a Tier 3 solar project located on Frank Long Road. Tax bank number is 010-03-38-1. Again, this is concept site plan. At this point of our application process, this is not part of a public hearing. This is our interaction with the applicant. And basically it comes down to do we feel that their application meets the code as presented in our town law that would allow Tier 3 solar applications? But there is no public comment at this point, that this is our interaction. And then after our recommendation goes to the town board, then the next step is town board, and they would have a public hearing on whether to grant the solar overlay zone.
Then we come back to us.
And then if it's approved at that point, then it would come back, then we have an official site plan review. And again, then there would be a site plan for a public hearing at that point. So with that, introduce and
Benny Ramsey, Seaboard Solar. Bill Ancherline, Wendell Companies. Mike Chandler, Seaboard Solar. Nice to see you again.
recognize. Nice to meet you, Bennett.
Yes, apologies, I wasn't able to make it last time.
And that's the gentleman whose car broke down on the weekend.
Yes, car troubles, the car didn't want to make the trip, so I'm here tonight though, and we'll be for the remaining.
What was your title? Sorry.
I'm project manager.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, thank you. Like you said, we're here tonight looking for the recommendation of the planning board to the town board for the project. Given the solar. The last time we left here, the town board, or I'm sorry, the planning board was continuing to review our application and the documents that we submitted along with it. And we are here tonight to answer any questions and go through.
And I guess that just for a visual, that for anybody's questioning, the maps and binder of a lot of information has been presented. Spent some hours on this looking through it. Do you want to hear from Bennett first, or do you have any extra questions?
Did we forward any questions to them?
I just had one today that I sent to them. Basically came back to within our town. Looking for clarification because in the Ag Resources for projects located on land zone farm. Any tier 3 solar energy system shall not exceed 50% of the area of prime farmland, unique farmland, or farmland of state importance on the parcel as defined by federal and state law regulations. And I was looking for a map and acreages that showed all on one soil types and the parcel outline and the array.
I think there is a map that shows that. I think it's in the book. It showed the soils and
They didn't show all 3 layers together. They showed
where.
It showed the array and the soil types, and then it showed the parcel and soil types, but it didn't literally 3. In the SWIFT plan, John did find one, and Bennett did answer me back a little bit, but not with whole acreages, so.
Correct. The total acreage of the prime soils, I believe, is between 20 and 24 acres, and the total parcel size would be 68.5 acres. So it'd be underneath that. 50
Okay, there's three categories in there though.
acres, okay.
Okay. Prime farmland,
Mhm.
unique farmland, or farmland of statewide importance.
I can get those for you.
That all three, that we want to make sure that you've got that 50%
Yes.
or less, but not more.
So
So based on my review of the table, it looks like you have 8.8 acres total of prime and state important soils. And that includes prime ag soils that are not prime right now, but they would be if they were drained. So we can verify that, and then how much, you have a 30-acre disturbance, how much of that 30-acre disturbance disturbs prime ag soils? That's the one we couldn't figure out. We have to show that at least 50% of the prime ag soils are not disturbed.
On the parcel.
On the parcel.
Yeah.
8-acre parcel, they're disturbing 30 acres. You need to know those 30, how much of those 30 acres are actually disturbing prime soils. And that disturbance is at less than 50% of the total prime ag soils on the 68 acres. I think you just have to overlay the disturbance on this. Looks like it's gonna be all.
Down and dirty, it's gonna be just.
It's close, pretty close. If we count, so the challenge is what the question brought up. Are prime ag soils considered prime ag soils if they are
The classification of prime.
drained? Right now, they're saturated. There's about acres of saturated soils. And if they were drained, would become prime ag.
So that's is that a legal question?
Well, it's an interpretation.
I'll offer my opinion on that. It's really no different than prime ag soils with woods. We can't use the soil right now because there are trees on them.
Right.
So right now we have saturated soils that you can't use because
Right.
it's saturated, but we can put in tile drain and drain those soils, and you then have prime ag soils. You could grow crops on them, just similar to removing trees. So in my opinion, it should be counted as prime soil.
As prime.
Yeah,
But at the same time, if the total acreage is 68 acres and they're disturbing 30, even if everything they're disturbing is prime farmland, they're below the 50% threshold for the whole parcel.
but the whole parcel isn't prime ag soil. There's some acreage, like 8 to 10 acres that isn't prime.
All right.
So you gotta just double check.
Okay. Okay.
So how far does that go? So if there's a pond or a lake on the property,
No,
and that's
that's,
prime soil under the lake.
no, soil map can't show that.
Okay.
If they have a raise on a non-farm land, that is.
So the maps show the wet or the forested as.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those soils will come up as non-prime.
Well, that was the contact that I had with Bennett. I reached out to all of you, and the only one I heard back from was Roy, and he said he had no further questions. But,
I said the same thing.
I figured no news is good.
You got it. Yeah. No, yeah, I had nothing else.
Anyway.
I had nothing else.
So,
Yeah, so I think that the question, if this answer comes out okay, and that 50% is, is this a decent configuration with natural buffers? Does it protect adjoining properties? Do the setbacks appear to be okay? Is there any problem on the view shed, which is one, and it's not in the
Protected view shed.
protected view shed, but also not just that, but are the neighbors sufficiently protected from the property? And is the you know, is this potentially okay from a drainage standpoint? That's a question for John. Do you have a?
So we acknowledge that removing 30 acres of trees is going to change stormwater runoff, going to increase it. And I'll need to work with them. But from that perspective, stormwater management perspective, those impacts can be mitigated. Just like we mitigate the impacts on subdivisions and other development, it can be mitigated. So yes, there is an impact, but in my opinion, when we get to the site plan phase, we will make sure that those impacts are properly documented, quantified, and then mitigated.
In the local law there, and it refers to tree cutting, and it does specify that the removal of existing trees and other existing vegetation should be minimized or offset with planting elsewhere in the property.
So my suggestion there is, yes, this is not minimal tree removal, it's pretty substantial. However, we could require in the decommissioning plan, once the project is done, that the area be reforested. So it's to be considered almost a temporary impact. That this land could be returned to forest once the life of
Was
the.
that in the plan? I didn't remember seeing that.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But it can be included.
Yeah.
When we get to the.
I mean, they wrote a plan for decommissioning, but I
It's
didn't.
not in there right now.
Not in there, okay. Now, what are the numbers?
Cover that? The bond.
If you include reforestation or the bond amounts, and that would you can make sure that.
John, what were the numbers again on the acreage? There's a total of 60?
68 acres is parcel. They're disturbing 30,
Okay,
and all 30 of those are wooded.
so it's tight. 50%. Yeah,
I think my number, guys agree with that, and everybody agrees, it does barely meet the 30%,
all right.
50%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you haven't settled yet on what you're gonna buy. I mean, you can adjust that to get to where you need to be also.
They're buying the whole parcel.
So,
They're buying the whole parcel.
Well, they're subdividing off of
right,
taking from three to create.
Mm.
But if they bought more land and it was prime farmland, that would change the ratio
Right.
also.
So you have the ability to do that?
We would have to discuss it with the property owners.
Yep.
But
well, it's probably, yeah, and it's probably, going a little bit too far ahead, but I was just trying to make the point that you've got some flexibility there.
Well, yeah, so if you look at that, and then if we can also just be sure about what meets the proposed meets and bounds is of this parcel. So we can be accurate. And, obviously subdivision is going to be a condition when it gets back to planning board. So, and I guess the last question is, does this overall, meet the spirit of that solar law that was passed by the town board? And so those are the issues. And, I don't know if there's further discussion if this comes in properly. And will we be ready for a resolution next week, or are there other things we need to discuss or other information that we need?
You go back over about his deforestation that cut down. I understand that you want to chip everything to help keep the soil and so on, but soil or all the stumps and all the roots, everything would be ripped up and that would all be chewed up where the actual solar array is going.
correct.
And just outside that would be.
Outside of our limited disturbance, so everything outside of the fence, there should be minimal to none anyway. But any stumps that are there, they would remain outside the fence. Inside of our limited disturbance,
It's gone.
the stumps, everything, roots, they all come up.
So in terms of maintenance, that whoever's upkeep, that they're not gonna be going through hitting a stump on there.
You mentioned that you had looked at other locations and this was the best location in the town. Would you have a plan B if this didn't work?
Not currently, no.
Okay.
I guess we're kind of been touched on. I know I'm aware that Route 91 with heavy rains in the last couple of years, that there's been some flooding down across 91 coming off of down Frank Lawn Road. So that ties back in, I guess, is mitigation of drainage is going to be very key with this. So as not to exacerbate the problem that's already there.
Right, as John mentioned before. When this goes in for site plan review, we will have to mitigate any increase to quantity that we create on site by increasing our runoff. You change from forest to meadow, you're gonna have a difference in how much runoff runs off your site. So we will have to mitigate that extra water to make sure that we're not causing an additional impact to the surrounding area. Good question.
I do like the profile, the way you've minimized road frontage. So that there's not gonna, you really, from what I can see, you're not gonna be able to see it from Frank Lawn Road.
If you were really looking for it, that's the only way you're gonna see it.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 years.
From the road.
Well, I mean, again, that can be mitigated with more screening.
Right, that's true.
But there will be an entrance, there's gonna be a gate.
Yeah, there's an entrance. Once you come down the entrance, the gate starts kind of where it starts to clear right here. That's where the gate is.
I mean, the fire department, we need to know if there's a gate.
Yes,
Yeah.
there'll be a gate with knock box on it, right?
Yeah. So obviously that's necessary for any absolute installation, right?
Tim has met with the fire department and they have not responded yet
Yes.
on this.
And the last comment, I know I said this, but just the meets and bounds is going to be critical because if it's a positive referral, the only way they can slap the overlay on it is to have the parcel, since it's not a tax map that's defined per se. Right.
The site plan that you're looking at, the existing conditions plans is based off of an alta that was performed for this project.
Does it have the meets and bounds on it?
It does on the
Okay.
existing conditions plan. I have a copy in front of me.
It will.
Where's that in your folder?
It should be part of the plan set, and 001 potentially. Existing conditions. Yeah, various distances.
First thing.
We don't know the answer.
So
Sixty-eight lot that you're gonna get, that's gonna be 60 acres, that's gonna get the.
This, I'm not in full.
Just we should have it. So those are really the main two things. Tabulate at a 50% and then give us balance and then we'll.
yeah, that one.
But you might have at least 50% of the time, same as the soils.
How does somebody to make a change? Starts the process.
Yeah, so it's fine, if all, if you find out your numbers don't work, that's a different piece of numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Sometimes, you know, if the owner do something, okay?
I'll be all over.
Yeah.
This is.
I'll be all over this. Thank you. That's what I was.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is.
That's what I'm doing.
I just need some calculation, gotta solve it.
We can possibly reduce it.
About the prime soils and the lot coverage, like, this is just. All right, I'll wait a moment. When is? When you're.
He's the soil guy.
I just had a quick question, it's more just a clarification for my notes as we look into the map, the front soil numbers. So forth. Disturbance versus lot coverage, that can be different from municipality to municipality and codes, and whether 30 disturbed acres is being considered the lot coverage, and how does that apply to the conversation about the front soil?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because sometimes some.
30 acres.
Right, oh, so sometimes, I'm not familiar with what the specific code here says, but
Well, it's not just
sometimes,
the little things,
sometimes it just means the little thing, so that's the clarification, I guess, for me.
also a legal term.
Yeah, the little thing. Some towns, their codes are written in a way where they only refer to the permeable surfaces, the impervious surfaces.
It's a disturbance.
Understood.
30 acre limits of disturbance. How much prime soil are within that 30 acres compared to the total number of prime and special soil?
Understood. Thank you.
There was also a question we were talking about last time here about a setback or potential setback issue on one particular corner with regard to either the fence or the pavement. I believe that already resolved that issue.
That was right here, and I believe that was Mr. Shaheen that brought that up. He had mentioned that he would prefer the distance from the top property line, the north, page top property line.
Yeah.
To the fence to be, I think you were looking at it to be 100. Not 100% sure, but we should be able to do that up there. We have the play, as you can see in my.
I believe that it was posed as a question at the last meeting more so than anything, and it was, does the town code setback requirement apply to the fence or to the array itself? And I don't know if there was an
I
answer.
believe, actually, you had said that it doesn't apply to the fence.
No, correct.
We'd like to.
Right, yeah, and I brought that up and I've gotten some clarification since, and general consensus is it's to the structure, not to the fence. So I want to go along with that.
Last question. Without the answer. That's fine.
Yeah.
Applicant's been, it's been very nice this time around. Having the amount of detail that we've had. Guess it's a little easier going through this the second time versus the first time too, but. Questions have been answered with the exception of. Basically on the, where we are on the percentage of the land.
Now, if you're considering making a recommendation tonight, what you might do is just make a condition that limits disturbance has to meet that 50% requirement. And if it doesn't right now, they just have to reduce the.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessarily.
And they need to provide the meets and bounds.
I since that's in our regulation. They have to meet it anyway. It's not like,
Well,
They could ask for a variance.
yeah, they could, but it's something that they have to meet. So yeah, in a,
well, this is what, but remember, this board is the one that's giving the recommendation.
correct.
So the town board's asking us to look at all that.
Yep.
And give them an idea of it, so.
Okay.
But if that is what you want to do, as long as you have those two conditions. You know, and that they would come here and be reviewed by legal and engineering, I wouldn't have a problem with the recommendation this evening. And that's up to you.
I have one other question or you know, we talked about the prime soils. This may not apply to this, but it probably should be talked about anyway. Because if those prime soils are really in an area that is never going to be accessible, you know, whether or not that prime soil should be counted or not counted on a project.
Say
I think you
never,
have to count it. I don't think you can just, we can
you
just
can't
say, no, we're not gonna count that soil. I think you have to count it in order to meet the requirements in our regulation that says it's gotta be, you know, less than 50%.
and don't confuse, you know, farmland and farmland soils, because this is treed. A tree farmer could come in and load the soil and have a nice crop growing there too. It's the soil. And I do know, I'm not saying it's right, but I do know some farmers have gone in and cleared off tree lots so that they can get their grains planted too.
It's also
Never-
more, so it's more complicated than just the soil, like, my daughter has a horse farm. Take a soil sample to soil conservation that allows her to get tax credits for that property, even though she's not growing it. But it's considered a farm under ag and markets because it's horses. So the soil has to do with a lot more than just whether or not the seed will germinate and grow.
Yes.
It has to do with tax implications and.
And it has also to do with steep slopes. If you have really steep slopes, it won't be classified as prime ag land.
Right.
It's actually part of, on this parcel, part of it down in that lower strip, it's not prime farmland because all of a sudden it goes to 15+% incline. And you aren't gonna put any equipment on that.
So when it's designated prime ag, it's accessible and buildable.
Yes.
But I think to Carl's point, it's worth noting that currently it's not being used for farming.
Correct. Yeah. I agree with that.
But it does come back to the soils and something you have to be aware of and all across the state, because article, and I pulled this from, and it was from the top topics and so on, and they're talking about solar, and they're figuring that to meet the state's guidelines for solar, that there'll be 330,000 acres lost of prime farmland soils in New York State just to solar. And that does not even include what they're theorizing by 2040 that would be lost to either urban high density building or your lower density in the rural areas. That on that side of it could be between 400 and 640,000 acres. So,
And just,
you know, in context.
and just to balance that, more acreage is lost every year with farmers closing their farms than would be lost to solar. So it is a balance, and I agree with John that this is not been farmed. This is not something that's actively being farmed, nor I don't believe there's plans for that to be farmed. So it is a balance. I would like to certainly protect farmland, but also I would like to protect the planet.
I would like to say kudos to the property owners though for keeping what currently is being farmed and is prime farmland soils, of keeping that intact.
So I'm gonna make a motion. Make a motion that this board recommend to the town board that the parcels upon with the parcels with the seaboard solar operations are intended for its pending application. That same are intended to be subdivided, to be added to the solar overlay zone with the following findings and conditions. So we're recommending it be added to the solar overlay zone with the following conditions. Number one is you must meet the requirement for 50% of the prime farmland. We believe that the configuration as currently shown provides natural buffers to adjoining properties. The setback and coverages appear to be met on this preliminary plan. There do not appear to be significant view shed issues to the neighboring parcels or passerbys. Mitigation of potential drainage caused by tree removal. Drainage appears to be mitigatable upon further engineering review. And the recommissioning plan must address reforestation. Which we can add to the plan. An appropriate subdivision will be required to push this forward. The application appears to meet the spirit of the solar local law as it's been written. This board does note that there is this board notes that there is a concern regarding the reduction of prime farmland soils both in our town and the state. And this planning board provides that the matter will be referred back to the planning board where we can further discuss the issues to be addressed.
Subject to final engineering and legal on the meets and bounds and the soils.
That's mine. Add that to it.
Inspect us if.
If the overlay is approved, it comes back to us. If it's not approved, yeah, it won't come back to us.
I'll second the motion.
With a motion and a second. Further discussion. Going to do an individual roll call on this. Go John,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Sue votes aye. Carl.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Dan. Roy is not here. 6-0. So the motion passes with those recommendations to the town board.
Got Jamie's stuff, right?
I'd like to commend you guys too on the submittal. It's very complete and it makes everybody's much easier.
Yeah.
So, thanks for that.
Round two coming up.
See you again.
Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Second, all in favor? Motion to close.
Starts with 15.